In this quick video, we'll go through the changing of front brakes and rotors on a Mercedes GLS series SUV. I like doing these videos because you can see just how easy it is to do this and, of course, how much you can save by doing it yourself. The key to making these jobs easy is to make sure you have everything you need ahead of time. That means your parts and all your tools. As far as the brakes go, you can get those from any of your online places, but Amazon honestly works just fine. I've been using, I think, a brand called PowerStop for about 10 years without an issue. On this car, you will need one wear sensor as well. First thing I like to do is to remove the cap for your brake fluid reservoir. That'll help the fluid flow back into the reservoir easier. Also help you keep an eye on it so you don't spill over. A set of these rubber pucks from Amazon are cheap, and it'll help you lift the car at the correct spot. They fit right into these little plastic wells, and make sure you don't do any damage to your undercarriage. Quickly going back to making sure you have everything you need to do the job. Double check before you start. If you have locking wheel nuts, make sure you have the keys for them. If not, it's going to suck to start the job without that. As far as getting the job done, you need a 17mm socket to get your wheel off. There is a rotor screw. It's a Torx 30. You'll use that to get that off. This retaining clip here, you're going to need a large screwdriver or better yet, a little pry bar to pop that off. In the back, the guide pins, they are underneath these caps, and they require an 11mm hex head socket to take those off. And then the caliper bracket is held on by 21mm bolts there. You use that to take that bracket off. Once you have your car up, you get the wheel off and set it to the side. Get yourself some PD Blaster and spray that rotor. Focus towards the center where it meets the hub. Also make sure you get that little Torx screw. Let that soak while you do work. Pry out this clip. It's a little tricky, but you pop it out of those holes, take it off, and then work towards the back. On this particular car, on the passenger side, there's a wear sensor, so you have to get that off before you take off this caliper or do any more work. It's a simple thing. There's one inverted Torx, can't recall, it might be like an E10 size, but it comes off pretty easily, and the sensor itself unplugs pretty easy. Take note of the orientation of that sensor though. The wire faces the meat of the pad, which seems like it's not right. It doesn't look right when it's installed, but it is. Just make sure you take that wire for the sensor and put it up and out of the way so it's not getting damaged while you're doing any work. Once that's free, you're going to use that 11mm hex head socket to zip those guide pins out. You should be able to slide that caliper off, and make sure you hang it so that you're not putting pressure on that brake line. After that, you're going to get these two bolts here, 21mm bolts, to take off that caliper bracket. Once that's off, spray that with PD Blaster as well, let that soak for a sec. Then we'll come back and work on these pistons. Set that caliper bracket to the side and make sure it's soaking with some PD Blaster. It'll make it easier to clean when we come back to it later. Really important, make sure the bit, this Torx bit, is seated very well into that screw so you avoid stripping it. Once that is off, give the rotor a few taps, pop it off. Spray the wheel hub down with some PD Blaster as well. Wire brush that, wire brush the bracket, clean them both off, and then we're ready to put things back together in reverse fashion. Rotor goes on, the screw goes back on, hit it with some brake clean it up, and get this bracket back on. Now, you need to make sure you lubricate any part that's going to glide, slide, touch, come in contact with each other, anything other than the brake pad material and the rotor, of course. Now, if we're on the passenger side, this is where we put that wear sensor in. Take note of the orientation. Again, it doesn't look like it's right, but it does face the meat of that pad. Lube that up, set it to the side, and we're going to start pushing these pistons in. Now, on these dual piston calipers, you might have to go back and forth a couple times because as you push one in, the other one might want to push out. Take your time with it. That's key. Go slow. Once you have both pistons fully compressed, snap the pad back in, lubricate those guide pins, and put this caliper back on. With both pins torqued down, you should be able to slide the caliper back and forth pretty freely and easily. Make sure you put the caps back on, those rubber boots for those pins. Snap this retaining clip back into place. It's easy to snap on just by hand. If you're on the passenger side, you've got this bracket here to put back on, and the wear sensor plugs in pretty easy. I like to make sure the wires are kind of pushed away from any moving parts. After that, your wheel goes back on. Of course, star pattern, tighten them down, and you're done. Now, here's why I like making these videos. Here's a Redditor online trying to understand why Mercedes wants to charge them $2,700 for front brakes all the way around. You can hit up Amazon, standard solid rotors like this for the front, $200. You can be fancy and get drilled slotted rotors all the way around for about $500. even if you have to buy some of these tools and you've never done this before and it's your first time, you're still going to be saving tons of money doing it yourself.